Have you ever wondered what it would truly feel like to wake up in a world where every breath, every movement, every fleeting thought is not your own? Imagine drifting into a dream so vivid, so beautifully structured yet so quietly suffocating that your very soul is wrapped in silk and silence. Tonight, as the world around you softens and shadows deepen, let your mind travel across oceans and centuries, to a land where dawn breaks not with freedom, but with a 1,000-year-old script you cannot change. This is Feudal Japan, a place, both haunting and hypnotic, where the perfume of cherry blossoms masks the cold steel of discipline and ancient laws. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself there, breathing in the misty air before sunrise. The air is so still you can almost hear the old wooden houses sighing in their sleep, their paper walls gently rustling with secrets. The hush of the morning is broken only by the distant cry of a crane or the soft shuffle of sandals across dew-soaked stones. You are not a visitor. You belong here now. But belonging comes at a price. In this world, who you are was decided long before you drew your first breath. Your name, your place, your purpose, already chosen, already locked into the endless rhythm of generations. There are no blank pages, no fresh beginnings. You do not wonder what you will become. The answer is written on your blood, echoed in the quiet prayers of ancestors who never met you, and repeated every morning as you bow to a sky heavy with unspoken rules. Somewhere, a temple bell begins to ring, its lonely chimes spreading out over rice paddies and silent courtyards. In its echo you sense the weight of centuries, the stories of those who rose and those who vanished without a whisper. There is beauty here, staggering beauty, the kind that makes you forget the ache in your legs, the cold in your hands, the quiet ache of a life you did not choose. The cherry blossoms fall softly, each petal a gentle reminder that even the loveliest things drift and disappear, obeying the wind, never their own wish. Before the world awakens, you prepare yourself not for adventure, but for the quiet performance of duty. The first light touches the eaves of your home, and you know what each hour will bring. Whether you are the child of a farmer, a craftsman, a merchant, or a samurai, you have inherited a script too sacred, too ancient to ever question. Your hands move by memory, not by hope. This is a land that sings to the sleepless. Every stone in the path remembers the footsteps of those who have gone before. Every teacup, every silken robe, every weathered gate carries the silent testimony of persistence and pain. Yet even as the world outside hushes you into obedience, your heart wonders, could I truly survive even a single day here? Could I bow deep enough, walk quietly enough, erase myself enough to pass unnoticed beneath the eyes of lords and ancestors? Or would the weight of invisible rules, so old they feel like air, gently crush the life from my chest before night falls again? Let yourself imagine the weight of that first morning when you open your eyes and realize you are not alone. Your every step, every breath is shadowed by expectation. As the soft gold of dawn slips through wooden shutters, you feel the silent gaze of your family, your neighbors, your entire village, watching, judging, remembering. You rise not to follow your own longing, but to perform a role that has been waiting for you since time itself was young. There is comfort in certainty, yes, but it is the comfort of a narrow bed, of footsteps that must never stray. Each gesture, each word, each bow is a thread in a vast and silent tapestry. The day stretches ahead of you, not with possibilities, but with precise rituals. You wash your face with water cold as winter moons, the shock waking every cell in your body, reminding you that discipline begins before you even speak. If you are fortunate, you wrap yourself in a robe chosen not for color or comfort, but for what it tells the world about your station, your worth, your obedience. You listen to the sounds of your home, the slow grinding of rice, the measured sweep of a broom, the soft warning voice of a mother reminding her children to bow before eating. In this world, even hunger must learn to be polite. Breakfast is a quiet affair, A bowl of rice, perhaps, or barley if the year has been unkind, the taste flavoured with gratitude and silence. You eat not to indulge, but to prepare for endurance, to steady your hands for another day of work, another day of waiting. And what waits for you outside? Streets that remember centuries of passing feet, a horizon stitched with the faint outline of distant mountains, fields and rooftops pale beneath the touch of new sunlight. Here, beauty and hardship are twins, growing side by side. The cherry trees bloom with a patience learned from loss. The rivers run clear because so many have washed away their sorrow at these banks. The old ways remain because the cost of forgetting is too high. As you step into the day, every movement is a prayer. You bow, you listen, you hide your laughter in your sleeve. The words you do not say are as important as the ones you dare to whisper. The faces around you, father, mother, sister, neighbour, carry their own burdens, their own rehearsed sorrows and hidden hopes. You are never truly alone. And yet solitude grows like moss in the quiet places of your heart. So as you settle into bed tonight, let the shadows of feudal Japan drift across your mind like so many silent petals. Feel the weight and wonder of a world where beauty is bound by discipline, where freedom is a dream left unsaid, where each day is a gentle test of silence and survival. If you find yourself wishing to wander these ancient roads, remember, it is not the sharpness of swords or the hardness of rice fields that would undo you, but the softness of submission, the slow unspooling of self, until only obedience remains. Now, with eyes half closed and spirit adrift, listen as we journey deeper into this world. For tonight, the story belongs not to warriors or lords, but to you, the dreamer, the wanderer, the one who asks what it truly means to belong to a world that never belonged to you. Welcome to feudal Japan, where the night is long, the silence deep, and every heartbeat echoes with the secrets of centuries. In the faint silver light of early morning, feudal Japan awakens. But the awakening is not one of hope or renewal. It is instead a gentle yielding to patterns set in motion long before you, or your parents, or your grandparents, took your first breath. Here, in this ancient land, your story was written with ink that cannot be washed away. Your status, your work, even the timbre of your voice and the direction of your gaze are all chosen for you. And so, as you step into the crisp air, the soft crunch of gravel beneath your sandals, the weight of your identity settles on your shoulders like a robe you can never remove. Society is a grand theatre, but the roles are cast from the moment. You are born. Did you emerge into the world as the child of a samurai? The expectations wrap around you tighter than the sash of your kimono. You are to be strong, silent, dignified, a living embodiment of generations who came before. The sword at your side is not merely a tool or a weapon, but a symbol, a promise, and a burden. Each morning, you must remember that every movement is watched, every mistake is remembered. Your education will be rigorous, filled with lessons on duty, loyalty, and the impossibility of error. You will be taught to stand still when you want to run, to bow lower than your pride, to offer your life at a word if required. If you are born a peasant, your world is smaller, but no lighter. You wake before the sun, your hands already rough from labour. The paddies and the fields are your inheritance, the earth beneath your feet, a prison you did not choose but cannot escape. Your dreams are simple, an extra bowl of rice, a harvest spared from storm, a season without sickness. But even these humble hopes are shadowed by tax collectors and drought, by lords who do not know your name, yet hold your life in their ledgers. You do not dare to look beyond the horizon. Your greatest achievement is survival, and even that is never guaranteed. If fortune, or perhaps fate, has made you an artisan, your life is a study in patience. You wake to the scent of wood shavings, the rhythmic scrape of blade against timber, or the muted clink of a potter's hands shaping clay. Your world is a balance between creation and humility. The objects you make must be perfect, but never ostentatious. A craftsman's pride is a silent one, shown not in boastful words, but in the careful curve of a lacquered bowl or the flawless weave of a mat. You know your place in the order of things, never reaching too high, never letting your skill draw the jealous eyes of those who wield swords instead of brushes. Merchants, those who trade and bargain, walk an even more delicate path. You may gather wealth, but never respect. In a land where labor is honored and profit is suspect, your success is your secret. Your silks and rare teas, your coins and ledgers, must be kept in quiet corners, away from the eyes of those who judge. You have learned to bow even deeper, to smile even when threatened, to blend in with the shadows of your own prosperity. A merchant's child grows up knowing that money may buy comfort, but never honor, and then, at the edge of society, moving like ghosts, are those who carry the burdens everyone needs, but no one will claim, the etter, the untouchables. They are butchers and executioners, leather workers, and those who touch death so that others may remain pure. You will see them at dusk, heads lowered, footsteps swift, voices rarely heard. They clean what must be cleaned, bury what must be buried, and live in the margins, shunned even as their labor keeps the world turning. For them, even hope seems forbidden. Yet, these are only the broad strokes. Within each class, there are invisible boundaries drawn and redrawn by gossip, by custom, by fortunes that rise and fall with the seasons. A samurai without land is looked down upon by one with a rich estate. A peasant who loses his harvest may find himself lower still, slipping towards debt and disgrace. A merchant whose ambition shines too brightly may draw suspicion, his fortunes reversed overnight by the whim of a local lord. What does it mean to live in such a world? Perhaps you imagine it as a grand tapestry, every thread fixed, every color preordained. But look closer. Within that tapestry, there are lives stitched with longing, with quiet rebellion, with the ache of dreams never spoken. You might wonder, as the day unfolds, how anyone finds peace within so many boundaries, how a heart can keep beating beneath so many layers of obedience. And yet, life continues. Children laugh, but always with a watchful eye turned toward their elders. Women teach daughters to bow just so, to speak only when spoken to carry themselves with the grace of willow branches bending in the wind. Men teach sons to be silent, to hold back tears, to carry shame like an invisible sword. Each person learns not only the visible rules, but also the subtle ones. The glance that says, "Stay silent." The bowed head that says, "I know my place." Still, there are moments, soft as dusk, where humanity flickers through the cracks. A peasant mother sneaks a second helping of barley to a hungry child, risking punishment, but unable to ignore love. A young samurai practices poetry by moonlight. The words, a secret rebellion against a life of violence. An old artisan weaves a hidden flaw into his masterpiece, a silent assertion that perfection is the privilege of gods, not men. All the while, the system endures. Try to rise above your place, and you will be cut down, not only by the law, but by the whispered judgment of your neighbors. The price of ambition is exile, disgrace, sometimes death. Upward movement is not a dream. It is a danger. You do not climb the social ladder in feudal Japan. You bow to it, over and over, until your spine remembers the shape of humility. And as the sun climbs higher, illuminating tiled rooftops and temple spires, you sense the invisible architecture of power. Everyone answers to someone. The village. Headman bows to the local samurai, who serves the daimyo, who pledges loyalty to the shogun, who in turn tiptoes in the shadow of the emperor. The higher you look, the more precarious the position, the sharper the fall for any misstep. The hierarchy is a living thing, breathing through every order given and every silence kept. You are not alone in this. Across the villages, the towns, the vast fields and narrow alleys, millions of souls are born into a story they did not write, reciting lines they dare not change. You find comfort where you can, in the rhythm of chores, in the quiet pride of work well done, in the fleeting warmth of family and fire. Yet, beneath it all, the greatest skill in feudal Japan is not swordplay or poetry, or even the art of endurance. It is the ability to accept your place, to survive within walls so old and so tall they seem to vanish into the mist. So, tonight, as you lie beneath a roof shaped by hands long dead, listen to the silence of your ancestors and feel the slow, gentle drift of time. Imagine the weight of a destiny chosen before you were born. Would you find comfort in the certainty, or would you lie awake longing for a world where your life could finally, quietly, be your own? Let that question linger softly as we drift onward, deeper into the heart of a world ruled by ancient scripts and the endless sleep of duty. As daylight stretches its pale fingers across the landscape, you find that the world of feudal Japan is not simply defined by rice fields, temples, and silent villages. It is ruled by a web of rules, both spoken and silent, as delicate and unyielding as the threads of a spider's web glistening with morning dew. These are not just laws etched in parchment or decrees from distant lords. They are customs that breathe in every shadow, judgments that float in every pause between words, traditions that shape the very rhythm of your heart. Your first lesson is obedience. Not the loud obedience of fear, but the subtle, ever-present kind that seeps into your bones. You bow not only to those above you, but also to the traditions that have governed your family for generations. Each day is a quiet performance, and everyone you meet is both your audience and your judge. The way you enter a room, the tilt of your head, the distance you keep, the depth of your bow. Each movement is a line in an unending script. There is almost a beauty in the choreography, as if every citizen is a dancer in an ancient ballet. But it is a dance where every misstep is noticed, and forgiveness is as rare as laughter during a thunderstorm. The code of honor, Bushido, guides not only the samurai, but echoes down to the humblest peasant. Honor is not a word, but a living thing, tender and sharp as the edge of a blade. For a samurai, it is life itself. To fail in your duty, to bring shame to your name or your lord, is to lose your reason for existing. Stories of warriors who fell on their own swords, performing seppuku in a final act of loyalty or repentance, are whispered at hearths and sung in shadowed corners. Even children know these tales. They grow up learning that sometimes the only way to cleanse a mistake is with your own life. Can you imagine such a burden pressing on your every action, your every word, your every hesitation? But the rules do not end with warriors. If you are a peasant, your days are shaped by expectations no less strict. You rise and sleep at times, set by the rhythm of the village and the seasons. The rice you plant is not only food for your family, but an offering to those who rule above you. There are taxes to be paid, rituals to be observed, festivals to be prepared with the right blend of reverence and restraint. Even a wedding or a funeral is not a time for self-expression, but an act of service to custom, a link in an endless chain of continuity. And always, there is the watching, neighbors peering from behind paper screens, elders listening for the wrong word, children taught to report misbehavior as a way to learn their own place. Privacy is a luxury for poets, not peasants. Every secret is shared, every failing whispered, until it grows larger than life. Gossip is not merely entertainment, it is a form of enforcement, a way to remind everyone that the eyes of the community are everywhere. Perhaps you feel the urge to rebel, to speak your mind or follow your own desires. But here, such urges are dangerous, and self-restraint is a mark of strength. It is not what you want that matters, but what the world around you demands. In feudal Japan, the self is a garden enclosed by tall walls. To look over those walls is to risk everything: your reputation, your safety, your family's honor. The sense of duty is not only enforced from above, but internalized by all. Parents remind children that a single mistake can stain a family's name for generations. Wives apologize for their husbands' failings, even as they carry their own burdens in silence. Children learn early to swallow their tears, to smile in the face of disappointment, to bow more deeply when hurt. In a land where outward harmony is prized above all, emotions become secrets, folded into the lining of your robe and never spoken aloud. Yet there are moments when the strictness of custom is beautiful. The tea ceremony, for example, is an act of devotion, not only to the drink, but to the centuries of ritual behind every gesture. A simple bowl of tea, shared in the hush of late afternoon, becomes a meditation on humility and harmony. The careful sweep of a broom in a courtyard, the precise placement of a flower in a vase, the measured steps of a bride in her wedding kimono. These are acts of reverence, moments when tradition becomes art. But they are also acts of surrender, reminders that beauty here is not found in freedom, but in the perfection of repetition. Honor and shame are twin shadows, never far apart. A careless word, a failed harvest, a moment's disobedience. These can bring consequences that linger for years. Punishment is rarely swift or violent, but slow, drawn out in the silent withdrawal of respect, in the quiet gossip that freezes you from the warmth of the community. Sometimes, the worst punishment is simply to be seen as different, to be set aside as an object of pity or scorn. And yet, you must wonder, how does the human spirit survive beneath such weight? Some learn to find comfort in routine, to treasure the few moments of laughter or kindness that slip through the cracks. Others nurture small rebellions, a poem composed in secret, a glance held a second too long, a forbidden hope whispered to the night. These are the seeds of longing that survive even in the hardest ground. In the hush of twilight, as the last birds settle and the lamps flicker on, you realize that obedience here is a kind of lullaby. It soothes and restrains in equal measure, promising safety, if only you stay within its lines. It is easy, under the spell of ritual and repetition, to fall into the gentle sleep of compliance, to let the ancient rules rock you into forgetting what lies beyond their reach. But sometimes, in dreams or rare moments of solitude, the old questions return. Who am I, beyond my duty? What would I become if I could choose, even for a day? The answers hover just out of reach, as elusive as the scent of plum blossoms carried on the wind. For most, these questions are set aside with the dawn, tucked away until night returns and the hush of dreams softens the ache. So as another day draws to a close, and the world quiets to the sound of distant flutes and the slow rhythm of rain on paper roofs, you drift into rest. Not the sleep of the free, but the careful, cautious rest of those who know their place. In feudal Japan, to belong is to surrender, to survive is to obey, and to find beauty is to accept the boundaries drawn long before you were born. Let the silence of this night carry you gently, as we journey further into a world where every rule is both cage and comfort, and every soul learns to dream behind the gentle mask of duty. Before the world is fully awake, the samurai stirs in darkness, heart already attuned to the silent beat of duty. The tatami mat is cool beneath his hand. As he rises, each motion practiced and precise, a quiet echo of years spent learning to move with the certainty of flowing water. For a samurai, there is no gentle moment between dreaming and waking. Even before the sun crests the distant mountains, the weight of responsibility has already settled upon his shoulders. In the hush before dawn, he bows in silent greeting to his ancestors, the air laced with the faint fragrance of incense curling upward in the gloom. It is a ritual of gratitude and remembrance, a moment to recall that he is not alone, that every action, every word carries the legacy of generations past. There is comfort here in the structure of ceremony, but also a constant whisper of expectation. For a samurai, life is a continuous balancing act between pride and humility, strength and restraint, power and peace. He dresses with deliberate care, layer upon layer, the silken underrobes whispering against his skin, the armor cool and unyielding. as he fastens each piece. Every item serves a purpose, every knot and fold an unspoken signal to the world. Here is a man who embodies discipline, who lives and breathes the ancient code of Bushido. Yet beneath the polished surface, his heart is not immune to doubt. The weight of the sword at his side is both a comfort and a reminder of honor, of duty, of the terrible price of failure. The morning begins with training, the courtyard empty, but for the rhythmic sound of bamboo clashing against bamboo, the measured footsteps on gravel, the instructor's sharp commands slicing through the stillness. Even the youngest warriors learn that perfection is never truly reached. There is always a fault to be corrected, a weakness to overcome. Sweat gathers on his brow, muscles burning with the memory of yesterday's mistakes, as he repeats the same form over and over. The body learns what the mind dares not forget. One moment of hesitation, a single lapse in concentration, could mean disgrace or death. Breakfast is a quiet affair, a bowl of rice, a pickled plum, perhaps a sliver of dried fish. There is no time for indulgence, no space for distraction. The samurai eats with the same mindfulness that guides his sword, aware that every act, no matter how small, is a reflection of character. Silence is more than politeness. It is the language of composure, the shield against careless words that might ripple outward, causing unseen harm. As the day unfolds, duty calls in a dozen different forms. He may oversee the village, settle disputes, ensure that taxes are collected and the rice stores are secure. He listens with patience to the complaints of peasants, the reports of other retainers, all the while holding himself apart, a living symbol of the Lord's authority, yet always watched, always weighed against the unforgiving scale of expectation. Every gesture must be measured, every glance considered. A misplaced word could disgrace his family. A moment's arrogance could draw unwanted suspicion or jealousy. Honor, here, is not just a matter of reputation. It is the invisible current running beneath every encounter, binding him to his lord, his clan, his ancestors. The tales he grew up hearing are never far from his mind. Stories of warriors who chose death over dishonor, whose names are spoken with reverence in the flickering candlelight of family shrines. The samurai knows, with a certainty deeper than the roots of the oldest pine, that a single misstep could mean the end not just of his own story, but of everything his family has built over centuries. Yet the day is not all grim determination. There are brief interludes of beauty and solace. A moment to kneel in the garden, listening to the soft rush of water over stones. The silent companionship of tea. The delicate aroma of cherry blossoms drifting through the open shoji. Even in the strictest regimen, the heart seeks a pause, a fleeting second of peace before duty's call returns. Sometimes he finds escape in art, a poem quietly composed, a brush dipped in ink, the elegant sweep of calligraphy across fresh paper. In these quiet moments, the samurai explores a softer strength, an inward courage that the battlefield cannot see. Yet even this respite is shaped by obligation. Art is not an indulgence, but a way to perfect the soul, to cultivate the calm that Bushido demands. Afternoon brings new tests, sparring with fellow warriors, lessons in tactics, the careful study of history and philosophy. The samurai is not merely a fighter, but a scholar, a leader, a model for all those who watch him. The pressure is constant, the fear of failure never far away. He must be ready, always, to give his life for his lord, to sacrifice comfort, love, even his own desires, in service of a cause greater than himself. There are moments, late in the day, when doubt slips in on silent feet. The laughter of children in the village, the gentle conversation of mothers, the distant song of a flute. These things awaken longings that must be subdued. A samurai is trained to suppress fear and longing, to wear a mask of serenity no matter the storm within. It is a hard lesson, learned young and reinforced every day. Emotion is a private matter, to be hidden away, never shown to the world. As dusk falls, he kneels once more before the ancestral altar, offering silent prayers for wisdom, strength, and the courage to meet tomorrow's trials. The shadows lengthen across the tatami, and the familiar ache of responsibility settles in his bones. Tonight, like every night, he wonders if he has lived up to the code, if his actions have honored those who watch from the world beyond. When he finally lies down to rest, the samurai is not truly at peace. Sleep comes slowly, chased by memories of past failures, anxieties about future tests, the constant calculation of risk and duty. Yet in the soft darkness, with the sound of distant bells and the scent of pine drifting through the open window, he finds a fragile solace. For all its burdens, this life is the only one he has known, and in its rituals and sacrifices, there is a strange, enduring beauty. And so, the cycle continues. Another sunrise, another test, another day to carry the silent weight of honor through a world that asks more than it ever gives. In this ancient script, there is no improvisation, no room for a single false note. The Song of the Samurai is composed in silence, performed in shadow, and remembered not in triumph, but in the quiet, unending endurance of those who serve without question. Let the world grow still around you as you drift into sleep, and imagine the life of the samurai, not only the flash of blades or the pageantry of armor, but the silent, lonely journey of a soul forever weighed by the scales of duty. The morning, for a peasant in feudal Japan, does not begin with the soft chime of a bell or the gentle touch of silk robes, but with the biting chill of dawn and the rough call of a life bound to the soil. Long before the sun peaks over the horizon, you wake to the steady croak of frogs in the paddies, to the familiar ache in your limbs. A body moulded by fields, not by leisure. The air is damp, thick with the scent of earth and coming rain, and your world feels at once infinite and suffocating, stretching from one end of the rice paddy to the other. Your home is small, built from wood and thatch, its floor hardened by generations of feet. The first task is always to stoke the embers from the night before, coaxing life into a meager breakfast. Perhaps a small bowl of rice, sometimes watered. To stretch it further, maybe a sliver of pickled vegetable if the harvest has been kind. You eat in silence, surrounded by the quiet breathing of your family, the muted shuffle of children dressing in clothes patched and repatched by careful hands. Conversation is soft, cautious. There is comfort in togetherness, but always a shadow of worry, for each new day brings the possibility of misfortune. As daylight finally creeps across the landscape, you join your parents, your siblings, your neighbors, shoulders squared against the vast green sea of rice stalks or the uneven rows of barley and millet. Labor here is not a task, but a life sentence, and the earth offers no mercy. The work is relentless, bent double for hours, toes sinking into muddy water, hands blistered and raw, muscles aching from the endless repetition of planting, weeding, harvesting, repairing dikes and terraces battered by last night's rain. Sweat and mud become your daily companions, as much a part of you as your own name. Every year is a gamble. Drought may shrivel the crops, a sudden storm may flood the fields, disease may sweep through the village, turning hope into hunger. The Lord's taxmen come regardless, expecting their share in full, unmoved by stories of hardship. You bow, you beg, but there is no escape. Sometimes the rice you grow is enough to fill your own bowl. More often, it is not, and the ache of hunger grows familiar, dull, and ever-present. You rarely see the Lord whose land you work, but his shadow looms everywhere. His samurai pass through the village now and then, collecting grain, enforcing rules, reminding everyone where power resides. You keep your eyes lowered and your words few, never forgetting that your place is to serve, not to question. The stories whispered at night, of uprisings crushed, of villages burned, remind you how fragile peace is, how easily order can tip into chaos. Children work beside you from a young age, their laughter fading as the day grows long. A game of hide and seek between bundles of hay, a quick splash in the irrigation canal. These are the brief joys allowed by a world of endless toil. School, if it comes at all, is an occasional luxury. Most knowledge is passed from hand to hand, mother to daughter, father to son. How to repair a roof, how to patch a kimono, how to read the sky for signs of weather. You learn early that survival depends not on dreams, but on patience and skill. When illness comes, as it often does, you rely on old remedies and the wisdom of elders. A fever may take a child, a cough may linger for months, a wound may fester without hope of a healer's touch. Death is not a stranger here. It visits quietly, taking young and old alike, reminding everyone of the thin line between this life and the next. Yet for all the hardship, there is a kind of stubborn pride in what you do. You are the backbone of the land, the silent force that keeps villages and cities alive. At harvest time, when the fields shimmer gold and the air is sweet with promise, there is a sense of triumph in every grain gathered, in every sheaf stacked high beneath the sun. The festival days, rare and precious, are filled with laughter, music, and the bright flash of lanterns. For a few hours, everyone forgets the hunger and the sorrow, remembering instead the simple joy of being alive. But these moments are fleeting. The festival ends, the work resumes, and you return to the rhythm of labor and waiting. There are no complaints, for complaint is dangerous, a luxury for those with nothing to lose. You learn to accept, to endure, to find meaning in repetition. Evenings bring their own rituals, a meal shared in silence, stories whispered by firelight, a prayer for good weather and gentle lords. Your dreams are simple, a full belly, a safe home, the health of your children. Yet even these modest hopes can feel impossibly distant. The village is a world unto itself, a web of alliances and rivalries, kindnesses and grudges stretching back generations. Neighbors rely on one another, sharing tools, exchanging news, mourning losses together. When trouble comes, the village closes ranks, protecting its own with a fierce loyalty born of shared hardship. Still, there are secrets, old wounds that fester in the dark, silent accusations and quiet sacrifices made for the sake of peace. As night falls, you wash away the day's sweat in cold water, hands still stained from the fields. The wind rustles, the bamboo outside, and the world feels both vast and intimate, filled with the ghosts of ancestors and the quiet heartbeat of the earth. You lie down beside your family, listening to the soft sounds of sleep, your body aching but your spirit unbroken. You have survived another day. For all its difficulties, the life of a peasant is marked by endurance, by small acts of kindness and resilience in the face of unending toil. In the endless cycle of seasons, planting, tending, harvesting, enduring, you become part of something larger than yourself, a link in a chain that stretches back through centuries of hardship and hope. As you drift into sleep, you find comfort, not in dreams of escape, but in the steady presence of those around you, in the knowledge that tomorrow will come, and you will greet it with the same quiet strength as you did today. Let your mind rest now in the hush of a village night, with the scent of rain and earth rising through open windows, and the gentle certainty that, no matter how hard the day, you have done what was needed to keep life moving forward, slowly, quietly, and always, together. As the first blush of sunlight slips through the slatted wooden screens, a woman's day in feudal Japan begins not with promise, but with the gentle weight of expectation. There is no hour when she is truly her own. From the moment her eyes open, she moves in a world carefully measured by others, her family, her husband, her in-laws, and the unseen eyes of her neighbors who watch every gesture, every silence, every misstep. She sits in the stillness before dawn, brushing her hair in the quiet dark, each stroke part of a ritual that ties her to countless women who came before. The comb slides through midnight strands, untangling not just knots, but unspoken hopes, old fears, the lingering weight of yesterday's judgments. Her mirror is polished bronze, cloudy and imperfect, reflecting a face trained to conceal as much as it reveals. Here, Beauty is not an indulgence, but an obligation, a duty to present oneself to the world as a reflection of family honor. Dressing is a ceremony in itself. Each layer of kimono is chosen with care, color, pattern, and length, dictated not by personal taste, but by season, occasion, and the subtle codes of status. Obi sashes are pulled tight, sleeves arranged just so, the fabric smooth and silent against her skin. It is a daily act of transformation, the self gently hidden beneath silk and tradition. Every ribbon and fold, a quiet reminder of roles to be played, boundaries never to be crossed. A woman's first responsibilities are to her home. She moves from room to room, straightening, sweeping, preparing tea for her elders. Her feet make no sound on the tatami. Her presence is almost a shadow, careful not to intrude on the men's conversations or interrupt the children's play. The kitchen is her domain, a place of both pride and exhaustion, where she turns humble ingredients into meals that sustain the family. Each bowl of rice, each cup of broth, carries with it the silent work of dawn and the gratitude of those she serves. There are rules for everything: how to bow, how to pour tea, how to speak, when to be silent, when to smile, and when to hide sorrow behind lowered eyes. For the daughters of merchants or peasants, marriage is rarely a matter of the heart. It is a transaction, an alliance, a negotiation, a way to bind families together and secure futures. Even for women of the samurai class, love is a luxury rarely spoken of, often sacrificed on the altar of duty. Suitors are chosen by parents and elders, names discussed over evening tea, while the girl listens quietly, her fate sealed before her own wishes can find words. On the day of her marriage, she kneels in her wedding kimono, layers upon layers heavy with history, embroidered with the symbols of fidelity and patience. Her face is painted white as moonlight, lips a perfect crimson bow, her gaze fixed on the floor. The ceremony is solemn, her vows whispered, her hands folded in her lap, like the wings of a moth caught between glass and flame. She enters her husband's household not as an equal, but as a newcomer, expected to adapt, to learn, to obey, to honor those who came before her. Daily life is a delicate balance. If she is fortunate, her husband is kind, her mother-in-law gentle, her children healthy. If not, there are few places to turn. Sorrow and joy are both held close, wrapped in the privacy of the heart. Women gather at wells or under the eaves during rain, sharing stories and laughter in low voices, exchanging small tokens of comfort and advice. How to calm a crying baby, how to keep rice from burning, how to mend a torn obi with an invisible stitch. Motherhood, too, is both a blessing and a trial. The birth of a son brings honor, the birth of a daughter, a quieter, more uncertain hope. Pregnancy is watched with concern, for childbirth is dangerous. Each new life walks a thin line between celebration and mourning. If a child is lost, grief is borne quietly, tucked into the folds of daily chores, the ache hidden in the gentle touch of a mother's hand as she strokes her sleeping child's hair. For some women, there is work beyond the home, helping in the fields, running a market stall, weaving cloth or shaping pottery beside husbands and brothers. Their labor is constant, their endurance remarkable. But no matter the task, the guiding force is always propriety. How to act, how to be seen, how not to shame the family name. Ambition is a quiet, dangerous thing, often surrendered before it has a chance to bloom. Yet even in this world of limits, there are moments of grace and gentle rebellion. A poem shared with a friend, a song hummed while hanging laundry, a garden tended in secret, where the colors and shapes answer only to the heart. On certain festival days, women slip away to watch lanterns float down river, their wishes whispered into the water, carried away on currents that do not ask for permission. As dusk falls, she prepares the evening meal, her movements slow and practiced, a gentle choreography in the fading light. The house is filled with the scent of miso and wood smoke, the soft laughter of children, the weary gratitude of elders. After the day's work is done, she sits quietly by the window, eyes on the moon, hands folded in her lap, letting her thoughts drift as the crickets begin to sing. Does she dream of more? Sometimes, yes. A world with fewer boundaries, a life where her voice carries further than the edge of the garden, where choice and desire are not forbidden words. But for most, these dreams are as fleeting as the morning mist, fading with the dawn. The strength of women in feudal Japan is found not in grand gestures, but in the quiet endurance of each day, the silent courage to persist, to care, to keep hope alive in small and secret ways. As the night deepens, she tucks her children into bed, smooths their hair, and offers a final prayer for health, for peace, for gentle dreams. The moonlight pools on the floor, and she rests in the knowledge that her worth, though often unseen, is woven through every corner of the home, every memory, every story whispered to the stars. Let yourself drift now on the hush of her world, a place of silken robes and silent prayers, of laughter and tears folded quietly into the fabric of each new day. In the stillness, may you find comfort in her strength and a gentle sense of belonging beneath the watchful, unchanging sky. With the coming of every new day in feudal Japan, the air carries a fresh chill, as if the world itself insists on a daily purification. Cleanliness is not just a virtue here, it is a duty, woven tightly into the fabric of society and stitched into every ritual, every gesture, every glance. To live in this world is to understand that the appearance you present is a reflection of your soul, your family, and even your village. The body is not simply yours, it is a vessel of honor, and it must be cared for as tenderly and as strictly as a sacred shrine. Imagine the first task of the day, stepping quietly across the cool tatami to fetch water from the well. The bucket is heavy, the air sharp, and your breath forms tiny clouds in the pale morning light. The ritual of washing begins before the house fully wakes. Hands and face are scrubbed with water so cold it stings, a simple act that feels like both a punishment and a promise. The water cleans not just the dust and sleep from your skin, but also the doubts and shadows of yesterday. There is comfort in this repetition, this silent offering of self to the coming day. Bathing, too, is a sacred act, more than mere hygiene. If you are fortunate enough to visit a bathhouse or to have a wooden tub in your home, you treat it as a blessing. You rinse the day away, letting warm water soothe your muscles and spirit, but always in a careful order, never dirtying what has already been cleaned, never wasting what is precious. For women, the process is even more meticulous, for they are judged not only by their own standards, but by the relentless eyes of others. Hair must be brushed smooth, nails kept short and clean, every detail attended to with patience and precision. Any flaw is not a private matter, but a reflection on the whole family. Children are taught from their earliest days to respect this ritual. Before meals, after returning home, after working in the fields or visiting the market, hands and faces are washed, sleeves neatly rolled, hair smoothed into place. Cleanliness is spoken of with almost religious reverence. To be careless is to invite shame, to risk not only gossip, but the quiet disappointment of elders whose memories stretch back before your birth. Clothing, too, is a language of purity and respect. Kimonos and work garments are carefully washed, aired in the sun, and mended by skillful hands. Patterns and colors are chosen not for personal pleasure, but according to season, occasion, and status. Silk for the upper classes, cotton or hemp for those who work the land. A spot, a tear, a faded patch, any imperfection tells a story, and not always a kind one. In a world where resources are few, the act of keeping one's clothing immaculate is both a display of discipline and a quiet assertion of pride. The expectation to appear orderly does not end with dress and hygiene. Posture is as important as perfume. To slouch is to signal disrespect. To walk with slow, measured steps is to honor tradition and self. Even the arrangement of the hair speaks volumes. A samurai's top knot, a merchant's simple tie, A bride's elaborate coils adorned with pins and combs. For women, the rules are endless. When to let hair down, when to bind it up, when to hide silver strands with ink or rice powder, how to cover a blemish with a whisper of silk. Beauty in this world is neither an accident nor a blessing from the gods. It is a practice, a discipline, a quiet form of art shaped by patience and endurance. Yet there is little room for vanity. To draw attention to oneself is considered improper. The loveliest women are praised not for their boldness, but for their restraint, the gentle curve of a cheek, the delicate blush of lips painted with crushed safflower, the careful dusting of rice powder across the face to evoke a porcelain calm. Modesty is the highest ornament, humility the most precious fragrance. There are, of course, times when these rituals feel heavy, when cold water bites, when fingers ache from scrubbing, when a child's hair tangles stubbornly and tears slip quietly down their cheeks. In those moments, the practice of cleanliness is also an exercise in tenderness, in patience, in accepting the flaws that no amount of effort can completely erase. The house may be spotless, the garden raked into perfect lines, but the heart sometimes longs for imperfection, a sign that beneath the surface there is life, laughter, even a little rebellion. Despite these longings, the rules endure. Inspectors and elders visit to check on households, peering into corners, testing for dust, for disorder, for carelessness. A home judged unclean can bring shame to the whole family, a mark that lingers long after the dirt is swept away. Women especially bear this burden, their worth measured not only by the sparkle of the kitchen or the whiteness of children's collars, but by the invisible aura of discipline they are able to maintain in the face of endless labor. In festival times, the importance of appearance only grows. Families dress in their finest, every detail perfected, every flaw hidden away. Faces are painted, hair is shaped into elaborate knots and coils. Kimonos are tied with sashes as intricate as poetry. Yet beneath all the color and shimmer, the old anxieties remain. The fear of being judged, of being whispered about, of failing to live up to standards set centuries ago. As evening falls and the day's dust is finally washed away, there is a moment of fragile peace. The skin, cleansed and warm, glows in the lantern light. The air is scented with herbs and the faint sweetness of soap. You settle into sleep with a sense of having done your part, of having honored both self and family through this daily choreography of purification. It is a comfort as deep as any lullaby, a gentle closing of the day's circle. Let your mind drift now to a world where beauty is a duty, where the smallest details are cared for with reverence, and where, in the soft hush of twilight, every soul glows a little brighter for the effort. Sleep and know that in the ritual of care there is a quiet magic, a promise that, no matter how hard the world may be, you are always worthy of a moment's peace and the warmth of a clean, well-tended home. As daylight stretches into the quiet, rooms and narrow lanes, the people of feudal Japan turn their thoughts to the most fundamental ritual of survival, the daily meal. Here, food is not a celebration or a distraction, but a discipline, a lesson in humility, patience, and gratitude. To eat is to acknowledge the toil of countless hands, the gifts of the earth, and the uncertainty of tomorrow. In this world, every meal is a soft negotiation between need and tradition, between what is wished for and what the land is willing to give. For most, breakfast is humble, prepared with the quiet efficiency of practiced hands. There may be a bowl of steaming rice, its warmth comforting but plain, accompanied by a slice of pickled radish or a thin miso broth if fortune allows. Some mornings, the rice is stretched with barley or millet, a small act of ingenuity in the face of scarcity. The taste is subtle, never overwhelming, and every grain is treasured, for to leave food uneaten is an affront both to nature and to the invisible labor of the family. The act of eating is steeped in respect. Before the first bite, there is a pause, a whispered itadakimasu, a word that carries gratitude not only to the cook but to the farmers, the rain, the sun, and the ancestors who once worked the same fields. Even the poorest meal is a shared acknowledgement of effort and of luck. Children are taught early to eat in silence, to savor without greed, to finish every mouthful with care. For peasants, lunch is often eaten in the fields, knees tucked beneath a shade tree or by the bank of an irrigation canal. Hands still dirty from work, they unwrap parcels of cold rice, perhaps seasoned with salt or wrapped in a leaf for flavor. There is little conversation. The wind rustles the crops, and the rhythm of chewing is the only music. The meal is over quickly, and the tools are picked up once more. Hunger is a patient companion, dulled but never fully satisfied. For the samurai, the meal is just as simple, though sometimes more formal. Rice is joined by pickled plums or a handful of beans, and perhaps, on rare occasions, a sliver of fish or a piece of preserved root. The samurai eats with restraint, mindful that to indulge is to risk dullness of mind and weakness of body. Each meal is a reminder of discipline, of the connection between body and spirit. Even in times of celebration, excess is frowned upon, and the joy comes not from abundance, but from the quiet dignity of enough. Merchants and artisans find variety only in seasons of prosperity. The merchant's table might offer a sweet bean cake or a cup of green tea, but these are pleasures for rare days, not daily feasts. The artisan's meal reflects the steady hand of its maker, neat, balanced, and plain. Every family has its own rituals, from the way bowls are arranged to the order in which each person eats. To violate these customs is to risk embarrassment, a small but cutting rebuke from elders who remember a harsher past. At home, the evening meal brings the family together in a circle of warmth and shadows. Light flickers from oil lamps, casting gentle halos across the low table. The menu rarely changes. Rice, a few vegetables, miso soup, maybe a single grilled fish if the day has been kind. Each portion is modest, and there is no room for complaint. The children know that to waste is to invite hunger, and the parents watch over the meal with a measured pride. Eating is not a matter of indulgence, but of fortitude and thanks. Yet within these constraints, there is a subtle beauty. The hands that shape rice balls, that slice pickles paper thin, that ladle soup with quiet precision, carry stories of survival and care. The taste of each dish recalls the changing seasons, the tartness of new pickles in spring, the sweetness of chestnuts in autumn, the rare, sharp heat of a mustard leaf in winter. Even in scarcity, there are small joys, moments when the sharpness of hunger fades and is replaced by the soft contentment of enough. Festivals and special occasions bring fleeting glimpses of abundance. On these rare days, the table grows bright. With mochi, rice cakes pounded smooth and dusted with sweet flour, or plates of fish and wild greens gathered from river and forest. For a few hours, the heaviness of daily struggle lifts, replaced by laughter and music, by stories and the clatter of chopsticks. But even then, restraint is never far away. The celebration ends, and life returns to its quiet pattern. Those who fish the rivers or tend small gardens bring what they can to the communal pot. Seaweed gathered from the shore, mushrooms found in the woods, wild herbs plucked at the edge of the village, all become part of the meal, reminders that survival is both an art and a collaboration with the natural world. There is no shame in simplicity. Instead, there is pride in making the most of what is at hand, in finding comfort in what others might overlook. For some, hunger is a constant shadow. Years of drought or flood turn meals into rituals of endurance, where parents go, without so children can eat, where rice is traded for salt or for a doctor's visit. The memory of famine lingers, shaping habits long after the fields have recovered. Even the wealthiest are taught to remember hardship, to take nothing for granted, to bow before the meal and after, in humble thanks for sustenance. As darkness settles, the family gathers once more around the dying glow of the hearth. Bellies are never truly full, but spirits are steadied by routine, by the nearness of loved ones, by the promise that tomorrow will bring another chance to endure. The quiet of night is broken only by the last washing of bowls, the soft closing of doors, the whisper of gratitude for what was received. Let your thoughts linger on these simple meals, the bowl of rice, the taste of salt, the gentle presence of those you love. In the hush of feudal Japan, eating is not merely survival. It is an act of hope, a daily practice of humility, and a lesson in the quiet courage of making do. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the warmth of a small shared meal, the soft glow of lantern light, and the gentle certainty that, however meager, it is enough for today. In the world of feudal Japan, words are seldom thrown carelessly into the wind. Each syllable, each gesture, each subtle glance is weighted with meaning, shaped by centuries of tradition and the ever-present knowledge that one careless remark can set off ripples far beyond what the speaker ever intended. Communication is not a simple exchange, but a delicate dance, performed on a narrow bridge suspended over a silent river of rules and consequences. From a young age, you learn that the spoken word is not merely a tool, but a test. Children are taught to bow low, to listen before they speak, and to measure their responses as carefully as a farmer measures grain at harvest. The greatest virtue is not boldness, but discretion, not wit, but restraint. A wise child learns quickly to sense the invisible boundaries in conversation, to recognize when a smile hides disappointment or a pause contains a warning. The world is full of words that are not spoken, truths that must remain veiled for the sake of harmony and survival. Politeness is not a matter of simple courtesy. It is a shield, a map, a way to navigate the intricate currents of hierarchy and honor. There are prescribed forms for every greeting, every farewell, every expression of gratitude or apology. Even the way one inquires after another's health must be carefully constructed, avoiding both directness and excessive familiarity. Too much enthusiasm might be seen as insincerity, too little as disrespect. The tone of voice, the depth of a bow, the position of hands, all are read with the attention of a scholar studying ancient texts. Silence, too, is a language, and perhaps the most powerful one of all. When words are dangerous, silence becomes a refuge. To remain quiet is not always a sign of ignorance, but of wisdom and self-control. In gatherings, at meals, or in the presence of superiors, silence allows a person to observe, to avoid misstep, and to preserve dignity. There are stories told, late at night, of people ruined not by what they did, but by what they said at the wrong time, to the wrong person. A word can open doors, but just as easily it can shut them forever. Apologies, when they are given, are rituals unto themselves. To apologize is not simply to say, "I am sorry," but to enact a series of gestures, a deep bow, a lowered gaze, hands folded neatly, words spoken softly and with careful humility. Sometimes, an apology is accompanied by a gift, a token of regret, an attempt to mend what cannot be unsaid. In the world of the samurai, a public apology might be a matter of life and death, the difference between a second chance and a final disgrace. Even among family, where love runs deep, there is caution. Children rarely contradict their elders, spouses choose words with care, and siblings learn to resolve disagreements through hints and glances rather than open confrontation. Arguments are muffled, emotions folded away like winter clothes. If harsh words are spoken, they are quickly followed by silence and, in time, by the gentle restoration of peace. Harmony within the home is prized above all, for a family divided by words is a family weakened before the world. Gossip, however, travels on swift feet. Villages are tight-knit, and rumours can leap from doorstep to doorstep with remarkable speed. The community watches and listens, not always with malice, but with the collective memory of generations that have learned the price of standing out. To be the subject of gossip is to feel the sting of invisible eyes, to know that each mistake, each whispered doubt, will echo long after it is spoken. For many, this constant scrutiny is a reminder to live modestly, to choose actions and words that invite neither envy nor suspicion. There is artistry, too, in conversation. The best speakers are those who can express what needs to be said without ever stating it directly. A compliment may be given through an observation of the weather, a warning couched in the praise of a garden's resilience. Poetry and riddles become safe ways to communicate affection, longing, or even dissent. Within this labyrinth of meaning, the wise listener learns to hear not only what is said, but what is left unsaid. In public life, especially in the presence of lords or officials, the dangers of speech multiply. A careless remark can be seen as an insult. A question can be interpreted as defiance. Those in power expect deference not only in action, but in every utterance. The right phrase can bring favor. The wrong one can lead to exile, ruin, or worse. Those who serve as messengers or interpreters are chosen for their ability to walk these fine lines, their words carrying not only news, but the fate of families and villages. Sometimes, the need for silence is so great that it becomes its own kind of burden. Secrets must be kept, pain must be hidden, and longing must find its expression only in the quiet solitude of night. In poetry, written in the margin of an account book, in songs whispered as lullabies, in the shared look between friends, meaning slips free from the constraints of speech and flows quietly, like water over stones. As darkness falls and the world grows still, families gather together, voices lowered to soft murmurs. The gentle hum of conversation is a comfort, a reminder that, even in a world of caution, words still have the power to connect, to soothe, to carry hope. And as you settle into sleep, let the wisdom of silence guide you. For in the quiet spaces, between words, in the gentle curve of a bow or the softness of a whispered apology, you will find a peace deeper than sound, a lullaby woven from centuries of careful speech and cautious kindness. In the quiet corners of feudal Japan, love is seldom a thunderclap, a storm of open declarations or passionate rebellion. Instead, it is a silent river winding through the shadows of duty, a soft presence hidden beneath layers of etiquette, obligation, and the collective hopes of family. Here, the heart learns early that its own desires are often less important than the needs of the clan, the harmony of the community, and the preservation of tradition. For most, marriage is not the culmination of romance, but the careful weaving together of families, fortunes, and social status. From an early age, children, especially daughters, understand that their future is a matter for elders to decide. Names are spoken over tea and under lantern light. Alliances are weighed, and fates are sealed in conversations from which the young are politely but firmly excluded. The rituals of engagement are precise and formal. Gifts exchanged between families, a flurry of polite letters, a series of visits marked by measured conversation and unspoken tension. On her wedding day, a bride is swathed in silk, her face painted into serene perfection, her eyes lowered before the watchful gaze of relatives and neighbors. The ceremony is solemn, the vows spoken in a hush. There are tears, but they are private, pressed into the sleeve of a kimono or caught by a mother's careful hand. For the groom too, there is gravity, an awareness that this day marks not only a new household, but a new link in a long chain of ancestral duty. Each gesture, each promise, is a thread in the fabric of family honor. And to break a vow is to tear at the tapestry that holds the world together. Yet within these strict patterns, the heart does not always stay silent. Sometimes love blooms in the shadows, a shared glance at a festival, a poem slipped between pages, a single touch of hands in the dusk. These moments are fragile and fleeting, carried away on the wind like cherry blossoms in spring. For most, the hope for personal happiness is quietly folded away, replaced by the comfort of fulfilling expectation, by the gentle pride of doing what is required. For a young woman, marriage can be both a door and a wall. She leaves her childhood home to join her husband's family, taking on new responsibilities and learning the rhythms of a different household. Her days are shaped by unfamiliar voices, unfamiliar customs, and the ever-present need to prove herself worthy. If she is fortunate, her husband is kind, her new family welcoming. If not, her sorrows are borne in silence, shared only with the moon or the slow trickle of water in the garden at night. Love between spouses, if it grows, is like moss on old stone, slow, patient, unspoken, but enduring. Intimacy is built not on grand declarations, but on shared tasks, gentle consideration, and the daily choreography of living together. A bowl of rice quietly set aside for a hungry partner, a mended sleeve, a word of encouragement whispered before sleep. These are the small, steady acts that shape affection in a world where words are rationed and emotions must be concealed. Occasionally, the longing for something more flares up in the heart, a desire to choose, to chase, to confess. But these impulses are quickly subdued. Stories abound of tragic lovers, separated by class, duty, or geography, their lives remembered as warnings rather than inspirations. Parents tell their children that happiness is found not in wild passion, but in quiet acceptance, in the dignity of meeting one's obligations with grace. For the samurai class, marriage is often a matter of alliance, a means of strengthening bonds between powerful families. Sons and daughters are betrothed for strategic reasons, their individual wishes secondary to the needs of the clan. A samurai's wife must be adept at running a household, raising children and supporting her. Husband's duties, sometimes even defending the home in his absence. Her loyalty is praised, her sacrifices quietly noted, but her dreams, if she has them, are hers alone. Among peasants and townsfolk, love occasionally has more room to breathe. Neighbors' children grow up together, and sometimes affection grows alongside shared chores and childhood games. Even so, practical concerns almost always outweigh personal longing. A good match is one that ensures survival, a steady harvest, or a helping pair of hands. Romance, when it appears, is rarely spoken of. It lives in glances, in songs hummed in the twilight, in the hope that kindness will grow into something deeper. There are stories, whispered during long nights or festival gatherings, of couples who defied custom, who ran away to build a life together. These tales are both thrilling and frightening, reminders of the dangers that await those who place love above law. For most, however, rebellion is not an option. The cost is too high, the pain too enduring. It is better, the elders say, to bend with the wind than to break against it. Children born into these unions are cherished, their arrival both a joy and a renewal of obligation. The first son is greeted with celebration, the first daughter with quieter pride. Mothers and fathers work together to shape the next generation, teaching them the value of patience, respect, and silent perseverance. In these moments, love reveals itself not in words, but in the steady presence of family, in the comfort of belonging, in the resilience required to endure. As night falls and the hush of the household deepens, the old questions sometimes return. What might life have been if only choice were possible? What songs might have been sung? What stories lived if hearts were free to wander? The answers drift through the darkness, as elusive as the sound of distant flutes, as gentle as the whisper of bamboo leaves in the wind. Let these questions accompany you into sleep, like the echo of a forgotten dream. For in the world of feudal Japan, love is a quiet hope, a song beneath the surface, a gentle longing that endures, even when it cannot be spoken aloud. May you find peace tonight in the knowledge that even silent hearts carry a beauty all their own, patient and unyielding as the mountains that watch over every village and every soul. In the lands of feudal Japan, the line between life and death is a thread drawn as finely as the mist that shrouds the mountains each morning. The seasons are beautiful, but never gentle, and every family knows that a single moment, a sudden storm, a hidden sickness, a trembling of the earth, can reshape their lives forever. The world is at once breathtaking and perilous, and the people who live within it learn to walk softly, carrying an ancient wisdom born of endurance. Every spring, hope stirs anew as rice seedlings are pressed into muddy water. The fields glow green under the sun's warmth, but the villagers know well how swiftly fortune can change. Rain may refuse to fall, or else come in sheets so relentless that dikes burst and crops are swept away. Wind tears at rooftops. Rivers overflow, turning footpaths into streams and homes into islands. Drought, too, is an old enemy, withering the harvest and leaving bellies hollow. And always there is the sea, beautiful, abundant, but merciless to the careless. Its tides and storms unpredictable, its gifts sometimes tinged with loss. The land itself trembles from time to time. Earthquakes ripple silently beneath the surface, rising up with little warning, shattering walls and scattering lives. Villages rebuild again and again, each time with the same patience, the same hope that the next season will be gentler. For many, survival is a habit learned in childhood, a lullaby sung in a world that does not promise tomorrow. Illness, too, arrives like a shadow, unexpected, invisible, sometimes unstoppable. In a village where the nearest healer may be miles away, remedies are passed down through whispered advice and careful observation. Sometimes, despite every prayer and offering, a child's fever will not break, or a cough will deepen until there is nothing left but silence and the ache of absence. Grief is a frequent visitor, but so is resilience. Families mourn together, honoring the lost with simple rites, with a meal set aside at the altar, with the quiet, daily acts that keep memory alive. Death itself is rarely dramatic. More often, it is quiet. A breath that slows, a gaze that softens, a final bow before slipping away. Rituals help to ease the passage. Incense is lit, hands are folded. Loved ones gather in silent farewell. There is sorrow, but also acceptance. To live is to walk beside death, not in fear, but in respectful acknowledgement of life's fragility. The ancestors are never far away, their presence felt in the shifting light, the scent of rain, the dreams that come just before waking. There are stories, of course, of lives cut short by war or violence, of samurai who fall in service to their lords, of villages burned in the crossfire of rival clans. But for most, danger comes less from the sword than from the natural world itself, from the whims of wind and water, earth and illness. The resilience of the people is not in their defiance of fate, but in their quiet willingness to endure, to rebuild, to love what can be loved for as long as it is allowed. Even joy is touched by transience. The beauty of cherry blossoms is treasured all the more for its brevity, the soft white petals falling like gentle snow, reminding everyone that nothing lasts forever. Children are taught to appreciate these fleeting wonders, to find happiness in the moment and to hold lightly to what cannot be kept. Festivals and rituals are ways of honoring not just what endures, but what is passing, what is delicate and soon to be gone. In the home, a mother might tuck her child into bed with a prayer for health, for gentle dreams, for another day of laughter. A father might pause at the doorway to listen to the rain, letting its rhythm steady his heart against the worries that always hover just outside the lamplight. Grandparents tell stories by the fire, tales of times when hardship seemed insurmountable, but was faced, always, with patience and grace. These stories settle into the bones, shaping a quiet courage that endures through the years. What does it mean, then, to live in such a world? Perhaps it is to embrace each day not with fear, but with a certain serenity, the knowledge that loss will come, but that love and effort are never wasted. It is to gather around a shared meal, to plant seeds even when storms threaten, to bow before the forces that cannot be controlled and to cherish the moments that can be. As night falls, the winds settle and the sky grows still. Lantern light flickers in windows, casting gentle halos on the paper walls. The world feels fragile and yet somehow safe, held together by the shared acceptance of impermanence. The people of feudal Japan do not conquer fate. They welcome it as a companion, finding beauty even in sorrow, strength even in surrender. Let this gentle acceptance guide you now as you settle into your own rest. In the hush of the night, listen to the quiet courage that flows through the centuries. A song of endurance, of small joys, of resilience in the face of the uncertain. And may you find, in the wisdom of those who came before, a peace as deep and lasting as the mountains that rise in silent witness to every dawn. In feudal Japan, the story of an individual rarely stands alone. Instead, every life is woven into the vast, intricate tapestry of the family, the clan, the ancestors, whose names are spoken with reverence and whose silent expectations shape each day. The self is a reflection of the collective, a single drop in a deep river, moving always with the current of tradition. The power of the group is undeniable, a comforting and sometimes suffocating force that holds communities together across centuries. From the moment of birth, a child's place within the family is marked and remembered. The family registry, carefully maintained and guarded, is not merely a record of names, but a testament to continuity, to the chain of obligation and pride that stretches backward through time. Every ancestor is honored in daily rituals, offerings of food, flowers, incense placed on small household altars. The spirits of those who came before are believed to linger in every room, their approval or disappointment felt in every success and every failure. Within the home, respect for elders is a rule as unyielding as any law. Grandparents, parents, aunts and uncles hold authority, their guidance rarely questioned. Decisions about work, marriage, even travel are made collectively, with the wisdom of the past given as much weight as the needs of the present. The family is not only a shelter from the hardships of the world, but also a court where every action is judged, every mistake remembered, and quietly passed down in story and warning. The clan, larger than the family, broader than the village, holds a special power. Clans are the building blocks of society, their fortunes rising and falling together. A good name brings respect and opportunities. A scandal or disgrace can stain generations, casting a long shadow across every member. Festivals and gatherings become opportunities to display unity, to reaffirm old alliances, to remind each other that the fate of one is the fate of all. This sense of responsibility shapes every day. A young man chooses his words carefully, knowing that a single act of pride or disobedience can bring shame not only on himself, but on siblings, parents, and distant cousins alike. A young woman walks with measured steps, mindful that her behavior reflects not just her own character, but the dignity of her mother, her grandmother, all the women whose stories echo in her daily life. Ambition is always tempered by the question, will this honor my family, or bring them sorrow? And yet, within this system, there is comfort. In times of trouble, famine, illness, loss, the family closes ranks, sharing food, shelter, and the quiet reassurance that no one will be left entirely alone. Decisions are made slowly but with care, everyone's needs considered, everyone's voice, however softly spoken, heard. The weight of tradition can press heavily, but it can also cushion, a soft hand against the harsher blows of fate. Children learn early to honor not only the living, but the dead. Ancestor worship is not simply superstition, but a living connection to the past. On festival days, lanterns are floated down rivers, their light a gentle guide for spirits who might be wandering. Names are recited at altars, prayers offered in hushed voices. The boundary between the present and the past is thin, porous, as if every act today might echo backward, comforting or disturbing those who once walked the same earth. There are, of course, burdens to this collective life. To step outside the expectations of the family is to risk isolation, or worse, expulsion from the group. Those who break the rules, through love, ambition, or simple mistake, may find themselves cut off, a source of shame rather than pride. The fear of such exclusion is powerful, a silent force that shapes choices and dreams, turning some inward, making others cautious and careful to a fault. Still, there is a quiet dignity in this system. The clan is not only a network of duties, but a source of belonging, a living memory that carries every individual across the hardest seasons. Elders tell stories around the hearth, teaching children that We is always stronger than I. The pride of a family is not measured in wealth, but in endurance, in the way generations have held together, survived together, mourned and celebrated together. The joys are sweeter when shared, the sorrows more bearable in company. At night, the home settles into silence, the flicker of lantern light catching the faces of ancestors on the household shrine. A mother places her child's hand on the altar, whispering a blessing for health and happiness, a hope that this small life will bring honor to all who came before. Outside, the wind rustles through bamboo, carrying with it the voices of the past and the steady promise of another day. Let yourself rest now, wrapped in the invisible arms of tradition. Imagine the gentle strength that comes from being part of something larger than yourself, a lineage that persists through every storm, every loss, every joy. In this quiet, let the wisdom of generations lull you into peaceful dreams, where you are never truly alone, but always surrounded by the enduring embrace of family. In the world of feudal Japan, the pursuit of knowledge is both a privilege and a calling, a narrow but luminous path that weaves its way through the strict architecture of social order. For some, especially the children of samurai and wealthy families, learning is an inheritance, a lantern handed down through generations, burning steadily against the shadows of ignorance. For others, especially peasants and laborers, education is a distant dream, a quiet wish whispered into the wind between chores and seasons. In the households of the samurai, learning begins at an early age. Boys are taught to read and write, to study the great texts of history, philosophy, and military strategy. They practice the elegant brushstrokes of calligraphy, each character a meditation on patience and form, a lesson in discipline, as enduring as any lesson learned on the training ground. Poetry is more than decoration. It is a means to express emotion with restraint, a way to speak from the soul without ever raising one's voice. Even the martial arts are suffused with knowledge, for the mind and body must grow together, each refining the other. Girls in these families are also encouraged to read and write, though their education is often oriented toward running a household, understanding etiquette, composing letters and poems, and mastering the subtler arts, flower arranging, tea ceremony, the gentle music of the koto. The aim is not only to create order and beauty, but to cultivate serenity in the heart, to endure life's hardships with a quiet, steady grace. For the children of peasants, merchants, and artisans, the path is less clear, often closed entirely. Most knowledge is passed not through books, but from hand to hand, in the daily rhythms of work. How to till a field, how to craft a sturdy tool, how to trade fairly in the bustling market. A lucky few might learn to read or count from a wandering monk, or from a kind neighbor who once studied in a distant town. But for most, the written word remains a mystery, the elegant lines of poetry and law as unreachable as stars. Yet, even among the humblest families, there is respect for learning. A well-told story by the hearth, a proverb repeated as advice, a song that captures the spirit of a season. These are treasures kept safe across generations. During rare festival days or temple visits, all are reminded of the greater world, the wisdom found in sutras and scrolls, the possibility that the mind too might journey far from home. Art in all its forms is a bridge between the classes, a silent dialogue that transcends status, the slow arrangement of flowers in a vase, the quiet care with which a tea master whisks matcha into froth, the deliberate shaping of clay, the echo of bamboo flutes at twilight. All are ways of connecting to something larger, something sacred and timeless. Even those who cannot read or write learn to recognize beauty in a brushstroke, a melody, or a perfectly balanced meal. Calligraphy, especially, is revered, a practice that combines spirit and skill, transforming ink and paper into meditations on nature, virtue, and fleeting time. To write a poem is not merely to record words, but to offer a piece of oneself, wrapped in discipline and humility. The most celebrated poems are often the simplest, capturing a moment, Rain tapping on the roof, the flutter of a crane's wing, the loneliness of the moon, with a few delicate lines. The tea ceremony, another cherished art, becomes a living poem in motion. Each movement is carefully rehearsed, every tool placed with intention, every gesture measured and harmonious. Within this ritual, there is peace, a chance for even the most burdened heart to find a moment of clarity, a quiet space where the chaos of the world is replaced by the rhythm of breath and the warmth of shared silence. Knowledge in feudal Japan is never free from hierarchy. What you are allowed to learn, who may teach you, how far your curiosity may wander. These are questions answered not by your longing, but by your birth. Yet even so, the hunger for understanding cannot be fully contained. There are stories of young people borrowing scrolls in secret, learning poems by listening at open windows, practicing their letters by moonlight on scraps of wood or sand. Monasteries and temples become sanctuaries for the mind as well as the spirit. Here, monks copy sutras with painstaking care, teach lessons to those willing to listen, and preserve the wisdom of centuries. For a few, study opens the way to greater opportunities. A life as a scribe, a tutor, a wandering poet whose words echo in distant towns. Even for those who never hold a brush or read a scroll, knowledge comes in other forms. The memory of seasons, the logic of seeds, the shape of the wind, the stories of stars. There is wisdom in patience, in the steady endurance of hardship, in the gentle humility that makes life in this world possible. As night descends and lanterns flicker against paper walls, the sounds of recited verses, quiet laughter, and the gentle pluck of a string instrument drift through the air. In these moments, knowledge and art become a lullaby, a promise that, even within the boundaries of tradition, the mind can wander freely, finding beauty and meaning wherever it goes. Let your thoughts float on these gentle currents. In the hush of feudal Japan, learning is a lantern, art a soft caress, and even the smallest light can guide you through the deepest night. As the final notes of this ancient lullaby drift through your mind, let yourself look back over the long, winding path of feudal Japan, a world of hushed mornings and silent rituals, of duties inherited like family heirlooms, of beauty intertwined with hardship. Here, every moment is a lesson in patience and restraint, every gesture a thread in the vast tapestry of history. In this place, to live is to be ever watchful, ever mindful, moving quietly within the boundaries drawn by generations long past. Why, then, would it be so difficult for a modern soul, raised on dreams of freedom and individuality, to survive even a single day in such a world? Perhaps it is because, in feudal Japan, the self is not the center of the story. Here, the needs of the group outweigh personal desire. Honor and obedience are the foundations upon which each life is built. The unspoken rules are as thick as the morning fog, and to falter, to speak too freely, to wish too boldly, to step out of line even once, is to risk not only your own well-being, but the standing of your entire family. Each day is mapped out in advance. When to rise, what to wear, how to greet a neighbor, how to serve a meal. The smallest misstep can bring not just shame, but lasting consequences. Eyes are everywhere, both in this world and beyond, watching to ensure that the ancient rhythms are respected. The heart learns to move quietly, to bury its loudest hopes, deep beneath layers of duty and expectation. Ambition is not a beacon, but a flickering candle quickly hidden away. To survive, you must master the art of silence, learning not only when to hold your tongue, but how to listen for meaning in what is left unsaid. You must accept that your place in the world is fixed, your choices circumscribed by the circumstances of your birth. Even moments of joy, shared meals, fleeting laughter, the beauty of a garden in bloom, are tinged with the knowledge that they are granted, not earned. and must be treasured discreetly, without ostentation. You would find yourself endlessly watched and weighed, by elders, by neighbours, by the ever-present memory of ancestors whose honour rests on your shoulders. You would wake early, tend to chores with care, choose every word with caution, bow at each encounter, and spend the day performing the quiet theatre of obedience. Even your thoughts would become smaller, shaped to fit the narrow confines of what is permitted and proper. Yet within these tight boundaries, there is a quiet magic. The precision of daily rituals, the gentle harmony of family, the reverence for beauty in even the simplest of things, all offer a sense of belonging, a comfort in knowing one's role in a story so much larger than oneself. There is wisdom in restraint, strength in humility, and a fragile, enduring grace in accepting the things that cannot be changed. Still, the modern spirit, accustomed to questioning and choosing and wandering freely, would soon feel the weight of these invisible walls. Where is the space to dream your own dreams, to speak your truth, to follow the uncertain roads that call out in the night? In this world, rebellion is a whisper, longing is a secret, and contentment is found not in chasing possibility, but in perfecting the art of being exactly where you are. Perhaps the greatest challenge would be learning to surrender, not in defeat, but in trust, to let go of the desire to shape every moment, to release the need to be seen and heard at all costs, and instead, to find peace in the slow unfolding of tradition. The discipline that seems so harsh from afar can be up close, a cradle for the weary, a framework within which the heart learns to rest. As you settle now into your own quiet, let these echoes of another world soothe you. Remember that, even though you live in a time of change and possibility, there is a kind of beauty in the endurance of old ways, in the patience to bow before the storm, in the humility to honour those who came before, in the courage to carry the burdens and blessings of your name. To live even a single day in feudal Japan would require not only strength, but a gentleness that bends and yields without breaking. It would mean trading the freedom of choice for the peace of belonging, the noise of ambition for the hush of ritual, the uncertainty of wandering for the certainty of home. Let the lessons of this journey drift with you into sleep, a reminder that, wherever you are, the quiet patience of generations can be a lullaby, and the wisdom of the past, a gentle hand guiding you through the darkness. Rest now and know that even the most distant worlds can offer solace, if only we listen for their silent song. Beyond the mist-shrouded mountains and quiet villages of feudal Japan, let your mind drift westward over restless seas and sunlit shores, toward a world that feels at once familiar and impossibly distant. In this place, where marble temples gleam under the Mediterranean sky and stories are woven into the fabric of every city and sea, a different legend quietly stirs, a legend not of obedience, but of daring. Her name is Artemisia, and her story is one of defiance, brilliance, and the quiet power of a woman's will. Artemisia lived in an age when kingdoms rose and fell like waves, when cities sparkled with the laughter of poets and philosophers, and war was never far from the horizon. She was born to rule, a daughter of royalty, destined for a life of luxury and diplomacy. Yet, in a world that expected women to watch from the shadows, Artemisia refused to remain unseen. Her intellect was sharp, her mind as clear and deep as the seas that would one day carry her name across history. As a young queen, Artemisia inherited the throne of Halicarnassus after her husband's death. She was more than a figurehead. She became a leader both respected and feared, renowned for her shrewd counsel and the quiet force of her presence. The Persian Emperor Xerxes, a man surrounded by powerful men and wary of dissent, found in Artemisia an advisor whose words cut through the noise of ego and bravado. She spoke with the calm of someone who understood both the art of war and the complexities of the human heart. The greatest test of her strength came during the famous Battle of Salamis. The Persian navy, vast and confident, faced the united forces. of the Greek city-states in the narrow, turbulent waters near Athens. Xerxes, eager for victory, called upon his commanders for advice. Many promised triumph, blinded by pride and the illusion of invincibility. Only Artemisia, her voice steady and clear, dared to tell the truth. This battle will not go as you hope. The Greeks are desperate and their ships are better suited for these waters. To fight here is to risk everything. Her words were ignored, and the battle raged. As chaos swept the sea, Artemisia's brilliance shone in the darkness. She led her ships with unmatched skill, turning the tides where she could, and when escape became the only path, she chose it with a courage that stunned both friend and foe. The enemy, mistaking her for an ally, allowed her to slip away, and even the mighty Xerxes, watching from his golden throne, was moved to declare, "My men have become women, and my women men." For generations, her name echoed across the lands. Some called her a traitor, others a hero. Her legend grew, sometimes draped in admiration, sometimes twisted by those who could not accept a woman's strength. Yet, through all the retellings, one truth remains. Artemisia was a leader who refused to be silent, a woman who chose wisdom over flattery, and survival over empty pride. Outside the battlefield, Artemisia's world was shaped by the same forces that governed the fates of all in the ancient world. Birth, duty, the expectations of family, the constraints of tradition. She moved carefully, balancing the needs of her people with the demands of distant empires, seeking peace when she could, wielding the sword when she must. In a world where women's voices were often drowned out, she learned to make hers heard not with shouts, but with quiet certainty. Her life reminds us that power is not always loud, that courage can be found in both words and actions, and that history is shaped as much by those who dare to speak as by those who wield the sword. In Artemisia's story, we find a different kind of lullaby, a song of resilience, of adaptation, of the quiet fire that burns within those who refuse to be forgotten. As night deepens and the world grows still, imagine her gazing out over the moonlit sea, the salt wind carrying both her burdens and her dreams. In her solitude, she is not diminished, but magnified. Each decision, each moment of doubt or daring, rippling outwards across the centuries. She is a reminder that even in times of darkness, there is space for brilliance. That even when history whispers, no, some will answer with a steady, unbreakable, yes. Let your thoughts drift gently with her across the water, and know that in every age, in every land, there have been souls who stood quietly against the tide, who chose, again and again, to be more than what the world expected of them. As the story of Artemisia gently fades into memory, let your thoughts wander farther still, beyond the borders of any single kingdom, across deserts and mountains, through the labyrinths of lost cities and silent temples. Here, beneath the same vast sky that watched over warriors and queens, humanity has always turned its eyes upward, searching for meaning in the stars. The night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon, becomes both a canvas and a mirror, reflecting the curiosity, the hopes, and the silent questions of those who have come before us. In the ancient world, before electric lights and glowing screens, the sky was alive with stories. On moonless nights, the stars blazed with a brilliance now hard to imagine, each constellation a promise, a warning, a map for the soul's wandering. The Sumerians, in the cradle of civilization, were among the first to look up and record the movements of the heavens. With careful eyes and patient hands, they watched the slow dance of planets, noting eclipses, tracing patterns, learning to predict the rhythms that governed both land and heart. The Babylonians built on these ancient observations, turning them into the earliest calendars and charts. Their priests watched the sky from high towers, believing that the fates of kings and the fortunes of empires could be read in the language of the stars. In Egypt, beneath the watchful gaze of the pyramids, priests measured the flooding of the Nile by the rising of Sirius, weaving astronomy into the fabric of daily life. The gods themselves seemed to travel with the sun, guiding and judging the lives below. Across the ocean, the Maya gazed into the same night, building temples that rose like stairways to the heavens. Their calendars marked the cycles of Venus and the turning of the ages, their priests blending observation with myth in a tapestry of time. In China, scholars mapped comets and sunspots, linking celestial signs to the destiny of dynasties. The emperor, known as the Son of Heaven, ruled by virtue of his connection to the cosmic order. Even in distant India, philosophers and mathematicians wondered at the movements of the planets, inventing new numbers and ideas that would travel the world. The Greeks, too, watched the sky, their myths and philosophies reflecting a universe alive with reason and wonder. They gave us the word cosmos, a reminder that order and beauty can be found, even in the infinite. To study the stars in these ancient days was to join a conversation that stretched across continents and centuries. The sky was both a riddle and a reassurance, a reminder of the smallness of human life and the grandeur of the universe. Shepherds counted time by the constellations. Sailors steered their ships by the North Star. Farmers planted and harvested by the changing face of the moon. Every gaze upward was a blend of hope and humility, a silent question whispered into the dark. Who are we in this endless night? And what stories will we leave behind for those who look up after us? Knowledge, in these times, was precious, passed from teacher to student, parent to child, scribe to seeker. Scrolls and stones, songs and ceremonies, all carried fragments of the wisdom needed to survive and to dream. In the hush of temple corridors, or beside the coals of a dying fire, the old would tell the young how Orion rose in winter, how eclipses foretold changes, how the stars were both companions and judges. Yet for all their learning, the ancients knew the limits of their sight. The sky kept its deepest secrets, and perhaps that too was a comfort. There is a special kind of peace in accepting that not everything can be known, that some mysteries are meant to be wondered at rather than solved. As the centuries turned, the thirst for understanding only grew. New eyes, new tools, new questions, each generation building on the dreams of the last, reaching for meaning in the patient light of distant suns. The sky, constant and ever-changing, reminds us that we are part of something larger, a single note in the great music of the cosmos. So, as you drift now into your own night, imagine the ancients lying on cool stone rooftops, the whisper of wind in olive trees, the hush of waves against the shore. Imagine them tracing the slow paths of planets with calloused hands, teaching their children to listen for the music of the spheres. Let their curiosity become your own, their wonder your lullaby. May you find, in the quiet darkness, the same peace and possibility they knew. The gentle wisdom that we are, all of us, travelers beneath the same stars. Forever dreaming, forever reaching, forever part of a story that is written in the silence between worlds. So now, as the candle burns low and the night gently wraps around you, let your mind rest on all the distant worlds and ancient stories you have traveled tonight. Each life, each tradition, each whisper of curiosity beneath the stars has left its mark, a gentle reminder that, across centuries and continents, we are all joined by the same hopes, fears, and dreams. No matter how heavy the rules of the past, or how vast the mysteries of the universe, there is always beauty to be found in patience, in wonder, and in the quiet courage to keep asking questions. History is not a cold record of what has been, but a living lullaby, a comfort in the darkness, a gentle invitation to see the world and yourself with new eyes. So as you drift into sleep, carry with you this simple truth. You are part of a story that began long before you were born and will continue long after you wake. In every age, beneath every sky, there have been dreamers like you, listening, learning, and daring to look up. May peace settle softly around you tonight, and may the gentle wisdom of the past guide your heart toward kinder, quieter tomorrows. Good night, traveller.